The kind of defense Missouri basketball has played lately is simply not good enough for a deep run in March.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso, and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And coming up, I do want to talk about how Missouri did blow its shot at the double bye in the SEC tournament. Coming up a little bit later in the program, but I'll tell you yesterday's result in Norman yesterday, to me, the most shocking one of the year. I really didn't see that kind of result coming. Could I have seen Oklahoma winning the game? Sure, but the Sooners basically took control of that game from the start. The Tigers had a good run to make it, 19-18 at one point, about 8 minutes into the game. But it really, I wrote down in my notes, even at that point, boy, Dennis Gates really seems content to play offense in this particular game with his lineup choices. But as the game went along, I think when Missouri put T.O. Barrett in for long stretches of the game, when Honor Boating was in for long stretches of the game, that felt like a pretty big message to the Missouri perimeter defense, I thought, in particular. And the reason this is so disappointing right now, the reason I have, a bit of an emotional hangover, a Fu Manchu going right now for those of you on YouTube, it's because I am emotionally hungover. 2 weeks ago, I called the Missouri win at home over Alabama basketball nirvana. That was just 2 weeks ago. But ever since, Missouri is 1-3 with a win over South Carolina at home and 3 losses on the road to teams that Missouri already handily beat at Mizzou Arena. So that is as much of a worry as anything. The second time around, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and especially Oklahoma didn't have nearly as much trouble with the Tigers. So that makes me worry that, quite simply, I think the book is out a little bit on Missouri, how you beat the Missouri Tigers. And quite simply, it's with ball penetration. Work the ball around the perimeter, find a matchup that you like, and drive the basketball. And, of course, against the pick and roll as well, Missouri was an absolute sieve yesterday, especially when Josh Gray wasn't in the ball game. It felt like nothing that Missouri did, whether it was a hedge, a switch, a double, none of it seemed to work whatsoever. And to be fair to Dennis Gates, where I've definitely questioned some of the lineup usages throughout the season and pointed out that, he was sending a message to at least Tamar Bates, I felt like, yesterday by playing Honor Boating quite a bit. But to be fair to Dennis Gates and his defense and Missouri's defense in general, their best 2 defensive players, in my opinion, got into early foul trouble. Josh Gray and also Anthony Robinson as well. So for those of you who ask why maybe Josh Gray doesn't play a little bit more, frankly, he fouls too much. And also, he's a bit of a minus offensively for the most part as well. And the thing with Missouri's defense also, the rebounding has been a problem. Defensive rebounding has been a big problem for Missouri. And a lot of that, I think, has every bit as much to do with dribble penetration and the pick and roll defense as effort or size or anything like that. It's not as though Missouri suddenly got smaller or shorter or worse at boxing out. That doesn't really add up to me. What adds up much more obviously is every time somebody gets beat off the dribble, every time a pick and roll ball screen ends up in an easy shot at the rim, what happens? The defense is scrambling and rotating and helping, not only leaving open shooters on the outside, but also open lanes for rebounders on the offensive glass for your opposition too, because when you're out of position defensively, you're rotating, you're helping, that gets you out of position on the glass too. And that's what I've been seeing the past few weeks for Missouri most of all. Now, if I'm going to be Mr. Brightside for you, Well, at least Missouri doesn't have any more true road games left, right? Two thumbs up. Well, that's the bright side. The negative side is that if Missouri is going to continue to play this kind of defense the rest of the season, no matter how good Missouri's offense has been, and by the way, since the Alabama game, which was probably the peak of Missouri's offense, the Missouri offense has still been good. Maybe not quite to that level, but you can't expect that all season. The problem is Oklahoma's offense yesterday, because of Missouri's defense largely, was about as good as Alabama and Missouri in that particular basketball game. The bottom line here is, again, if you're going to make a deep run in March Madness, which I think a few weeks ago, heck, 2 weeks ago, it felt like all of us thought Missouri could absolutely do. Well, Missouri can still play with anybody. They can still beat anyone on any given night. The problem is there's no way you can expect your offense to be at an elite level for, say, 3 to 4, 5, 6 games for that matter in the NCAA tournament. That's just simply not going to happen. So if you're Missouri and you want to do something that's never been done before in the history of this program, or you just want to make the Sweet 16 even for that matter, you better start figuring some stuff out defensively. If I'm Tamar Bates, if I'm Dennis Gates, I am obsessed this morning at watching that film from the past 3 ball games or so, especially on the road, and figure out what in the heck we've got to do to start getting some stops. Now, one thing I've heard some talk of is, hey, has Missouri hit the wall here? Are they running out of gas here at the end of the season? Well, the simple answer to that question is, I don't know. I don't know how to parse people's energy levels at this point, especially collectively, much less individually. But I will say that particular theory doesn't hold a lot of water for me, considering how many guys Missouri is playing. It's not as though Missouri has a 6 or 7 man rotation here. And in fact, if you look at Tamar Bates, for example, well, Bates during SEC play has only played more than 30 minutes 4 times. He played a season high 37 minutes against Vanderbilt the other night. But for the most part, even against Alabama, Bates plays 25 minutes. Against Tennessee, 30. Mississippi State, 29. Mississippi, 28. Texas, 28. So for the most part, even some of your most important players like Bates, well, Missouri has found opportunities to give these guys rests, including just 15 minutes for Bates against South Carolina. So I think Dennis Gates and his staff have done an intelligent job. If anything, if you think Dennis Gates is playing too many guys, well, the positive side of that trade-off is that these guys should be fresh right now. So, again, I can't really speak to these guys' injury statuses or energy levels or anything like that, but if I'm going to collectively say, well, Missouri's running out of gas, what exactly would that be based on? Because I don't have a lot of evidence that supports that other than just the results the last few games, which I think are a lot more explainable as to the idea that, hey, the book is out on Mizzou. Attack them on the perimeter, get into the paint from the perimeter, and you'll be successful more often than not. I think that's the real problem for Missouri right now, not that they're running out of energy. And coming up, another Achilles heel for Missouri that seems to have infected one of its best defenders on the perimeter for sure, and now it seems to be infecting really the entire team. Let's talk about that and how Missouri blew a really good shot at a double bye. But you know what? First, you can get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. It's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. With a complete inventory of more than 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. And Supply House offers expert support. You'll always talk to a real person. And for the pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks, a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. So first of all, as usual, I thought the officiating was a little shaky last night overall for both sides, but, well, thought a little bit more harshly on the Missouri side in this particular case. I'll just be honest, I thought the officiating was pretty brutal. The first call on Anthony Robinson, didn't love it, but then the second foul, that was all Robinson. At a certain point, he's just got to learn, especially after you've already picked up an early one, to tone down the aggression just a tiny bit. Robinson picks up 4 fouls in just 13 minutes. And as good as he was the previous game against Vanderbilt, he's just got to find a way to be on the floor. That's all there is to it. And in general, the Missouri defense on the perimeter has not only been porous, but it's been overly physical at the same time. You saw Tony Perkins get 4 fouls last night. In just 7 minutes, T.O. Barrett picks up 3 fouls. So Missouri, one way or the other, is going to have to figure out not only a way to defend, but a way to defend without fouling as well. And when it comes to maybe some type of solution off the Missouri bench, I realize his offense leaves a lot to be desired, and that's definitely why he doesn't play nearly as much as he does. But Aidan Shaw is a plus defensively. I think that there is a lineup where you can put him and Josh Gray on the floor at the same time as long as you have enough offense to go with it. What if Gray and Shaw went with Caleb Grill and Tamar Bates and Anthony Robinson? Now you have 3 bona fide scorers on the perimeter to go with a couple of legit rim protectors and a guy in Shaw who's not only a rim protector, but a guy who can cover a ton of ground as well. And by the way, for Gray's size, he can cover a ton of ground side to side as well. So to me, try that particular lineup at some point. Maybe you've already tried it in practice, so maybe I haven't broken new ground here. But to me, is there a way you can put Aidan Shaw on the court and still score enough for him to be effective? That's something I'm asking myself if I'm Dennis Gates this morning. And unfortunately, Missouri blew a golden opportunity at a double bye in the SEC tournament, because if the Tigers had simply won one of these past 2 road games, either Vanderbilt or Oklahoma, they'd be sitting at a tie for 4th place with Tennessee, and more importantly, they'd be 1 game behind 3rd place Alabama. The Gators, beat the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa last night. So that means Alabama will finish the season at Auburn in a game that they're likely to lose, quite honestly, because while Auburn, this is how I'm looking at it anyway. If I'm Bruce Pearl, sure, I don't have anything to play for in the SEC right now. My team has already wrapped up the SEC championship outright. But playing Alabama on Senior Day, the basketball Iron Bowl, if you will, well, I want to win that game for my fans and for myself if I'm Bruce Pearl. If anything, in the SEC tournament, which Pearl openly said, hey, I think that cost us in the first round last year when the Auburn Tigers were upset as a 2 seed in the first round, I could easily see Auburn maybe not playing their starters and their regulars their full load of minutes. Still trying to win the games, of course, but that I could absolutely see. Whereas against Alabama, I think they'll go full tilt, 100% trying to win that particular basketball game. So according to Ken Pom, hey, there would have been like an 80% chance Auburn was going to win that game, so that would have dropped Alabama into a tie with Missouri. Again, assuming a victory over Kentucky on Saturday, that would have been a double bye for Missouri. Would have probably been a top 4 seed in March Madness as well. Instead, the Tigers against Vanderbilt decided to completely foul up the end game execution and then just get run off the court in overtime, and then against Oklahoma decide to play absolutely no defense whatsoever. What a disappointing blown opportunity it's been here the last couple weeks for Missouri, especially if you want to include the Arkansas game as well into this equation. Again, win one of those last 3 road games, and Missouri basically is right where it wants to be, in my opinion. So it's really, really disappointing. You see what Missouri's given up the past 3 on the road: 92, 97, 96. I don't like that trend. And by the way, just in case you thought a basketball season was going to be winding down soon, au contraire, because here's the deal. Even if Missouri exits from the first round of the NCAA tournament, well, the Monday after the second round in March, that's March 24th, just 2.5 weeks away, the basketball portal will be open. Yes, just like football, we open up the portal right in the middle of the most important tournament of the season. Who are the ad wizards that came up with that one? Why not just wait a couple weeks until the NCAA championship is over, until the college football playoff is over? Somebody's got to explain to me why that would ruin the sport for waiting a couple more weeks. I suppose it helps parity, if anything, if teams that are eliminated early can get a jump on the teams that advance farther in the brackets, I suppose. But I don't know. That just makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. But I suppose it's good for content, so what do I care? And another timing thing that I've been meaning to note for those of you who live in the state of Missouri. Of course, this past November, I believe it was this past November, right? I think that's correct. But regardless, Missouri did pass a law legalizing sports betting in the state. So a lot of you are probably wondering, hey, what's the deal? When's it actually going to be in place? Well, it looks like, by all accounts, Missouri betting is likely to be in place this fall. So hopefully by football season, we'll have to see. All I know is that by law, it has to be in place by December 1st, 2025. So it's coming this year, one way or the other, hopefully this fall, but certainly no later than December 1st. So for those of you who've been wondering, why does this guy keep doing all these FanDuel reads? It's coming, folks. It's coming. And coming up, a local team has one of the worst ideas in the history of college football. I'll talk about it after these quick words. So some of my best friends in the world went to Missouri State. So I take no joy in pointing this out, but I think the Bears have made a grave, grave error by deciding to join FBS football this coming season. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard of a worse idea in my entire life. And just so we're clear here, I don't think this has any impact on Missouri whatsoever. So it's not about that. It's not about, oh no, this is going to hurt the Tigers. If I thought this was going to hurt the Tigers by even 1%, maybe I would think it is a good idea for Missouri State. I just don't understand how they're going to compete on any level whatsoever in FBS football, because quite simply, Missouri State was never anything to write home about in FCS football, not only in terms of winning, but just in terms of interest too. Speaking of some of those best friends I have who went to and graduated from Missouri State, I don't remember them regaling me with tales of, wow, that Missouri State game was so much fun, and the tailgating scene or whatever. Just somebody explain to me what the path is for Missouri State to be an even a non-doormat in FBS football. I don't even want them. How about mediocre? Can we get to that point? Because I just don't see that happening. Who are they going to get to come play in Springfield? Because the Tigers certainly aren't going there. You think they're going to get any major teams to draw eyeballs and more attention? You think Kennesaw State and Alabama, Birmingham are going to put butts in the seats in Springfield. I just don't understand this move on any level. I really don't. I suppose they'll get more dollars in the short term, but I just don't see how you make it back. Somebody explain to me how any of this makes sense for Missouri State. Again, it's not about Mizzou. I don't think this affects Missouri whatsoever. It's not as though Missouri State and the Tigers are going to be competing for recruits. Missouri is competing with Alabama and Georgia for recruits often these days. Missouri State? Are you kidding me? Where is the interest? Why is this going to end well? I just really don't understand it whatsoever. And since I brought up legalized betting, of course, coming to Missouri this year, I do want to point out something for all of you who may be new bettors. Maybe you haven't thrown down money before, or maybe you're just not a winner. Well, I'm going to teach you something about how to win, especially in 2025. Don't bother putting any money down on futures. And the old sponsor, FanDuel Sportsbook, may not like me saying that, but I don't care. I'm looking out for you, the viewers and listeners, because in a world where the over-under total for Mizzou football next season is 7.5, how does it make any sense that the Tigers win the Southeastern Conference? You're only getting paid 50-1 on that. Seems like I should be getting, I don't know, at least 100 on that or something like that. If you're putting it at 7.5 to 7.5 win total, that puts Missouri very much in the middle to bottom half of the SEC. So you're telling me if I call the Tigers winning their first conference championship since 1969, you're only going to pay me 50-1 on that? Come on now. I can do a heck of a lot better than that. If anything, hey, take the over on Missouri if you're confident on the Tigers, because the juice is slightly on the under. They're going to pay you more handsomely if you have the guts to go 8 wins or more with the Tigers. Not even saying you should do that. I'm just saying if you are bullish on the Tigers, forget about the futures market. There is no value on your SEC or national title bets whatsoever. If anything, heck, just bet Missouri every game next season. If you think you're going to win the whole thing, then just bet them and keep piling the winnings on top every time and let it ride, as Randy Marsh once famously said. So, you know what? With all that being said, thanks as always for listening to Locked On Mizzou and making it your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball to become an expert now before the madness begins. Again, find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And until next time, I'm John Miller. Thanks for listening to Locked On Mizzou.